video is about this picture and what it represents in a video game. It's about not real ammunition and not real firearms. And it will not instruct you on how to make any of these things. However, it will bring up some of the characteristics about them that would be useful in the video game Fallout, where they have pipe rifles and pipe pistols. This is now I'm going to read it verbatim. Up here it's trying to spell 50. That's .32. That's supposed to be caliber, and that's supposed to be the word short. And that's pistol, and that's supposed to be the word cartridge. There's actually so many defects in it that none of it actually says that. Next thing is, as you can tell from the rather high resolution, this didn't have to be blurry like that. They left it vague on purpose, and this is an icon in a video game. And yes, I unrotated and cleaned it up and blah, blah, blah. I hate Dutch angles, so let's move on. Next. That's an actual cartridge containing .32 caliber short cartridges that had swaged bullets. It's 50 rounds of .32 caliber short Rimfire cartridges, and it was from the Union Metallic Cartridge Company, and that's why it has a trademark, the letter U. Now, going back here, you can kind of vaguely make out what would have been a head stamp. They obviously removed it from the image as best they could. They added noise to it. And over here where they would have the trademark symbol, which would have been the head stamp from the cartridge, even though that's the bottom of the cartridge, we call it a head. It would have had some letter in there. They removed it because that way there's no possibility of it being, a real world directly associated thing. As the developer said, in the wasteland, the wanderers make firearm looking things. They're not necessarily making a firearm. They make things that look like a gun. Gun-like items. But this is probably what it was inspired by because, as you can see, the edges here are worn and there's a seam around the middle. I've seen a package of this. It wasn't this rounded off shape and it wasn't scuffed on the edges. It was a brand new box with very square edges that had a piece of tape going around it when you bought it to seal it to make sure the ammunition was good for potentially 100 years. And there's the real-world cartridge, and this is an excerpt from an image on Wikipedia. Now, as you can see here, these edges are worn, and these surfaces aren't worn. Those are just line marks that are done on the cardboard for stylistic reasons and or to give contrast. This is a inked-in area or a stamped area or maybe a sticker, and it shows the cartridge. And it's obviously either inspired by or a direct ripoff of this. There may also be a real-world cartridge container like that. And it has the seam down here where they come apart. This shows you how the box comes apart. And, yeah, I consider this very scary looking. You can also see some of the cartridges had a letter P. There are other characters besides the letter U. And these are all Rimfire cartridges. And this was sold from the Union Metallic Cartridge Company. But this package obviously had cartridges that were obviously compatible, that were from other companies. And that's a Rimfire cartridge, even though it would be in a vaguely referred to .32 caliber pistol. And that's the Wikipedia article image that used to be up. They used to have the whole image, and it's the .32 caliber Smith & Wesson. Let's do that again. That's the .32 caliber Smith & Wesson. It's Smith & Wesson. The Smith & Wesson Model 1. The Model 2 is actually used in the game, and it's a .38 caliber, but there were versions of the gun in the game that just unscrewed this and put on this and this from a .32 and put it in the gun, apparently, because that was one way to move the firing pin. Now, the .32 caliber Rimfire evolved into .32 caliber centerfire, which was reloadable later on. I'm actually wondering if that's not what's down there. But anyway, let's move on. This is the .32 caliber centerfire, and they call it a short Colt. And this is red. Now, let's go back to our original image. Red lettering on a white background with a green box. No green, but red and black and white. And we got red, black, and white here. So they were trying to make sure it was different looking, obviously. These are the smokeless cartridges. They did not use gunpowder. They used centerfire, primer right in the middle, instead of using a rimfire. By the way, the symbol on the original box in the game could symbolize rimfire as well. And this is from Winchester Repeating Arms, but they decided to call it a Colt. That's a brand renaming. That's RetroCon. That's not headcanon. Anyway, here we go with our cartridge box. And this is what they looked like when they were packed correctly in the cartridge box. 5 by 10. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio box. Now, I want to point out, in a game engine, if you're trying to make a box shape, starting off with something that has square edges is much easier. But in the game, they chose to do this classic design because they talked about it in the past tense as being common ammo. The year 2077, October 23rd, was the Great War. 2277, or something like that, hundreds of years later, Fallout 3, the video game, which came out in 2008, is taking place in that area. Now, in the game, in all the games, they refer to ammunition including percussion caps or primers, loose powder, balls or bullets, and shot. By the way, I want to point out that that's basically a quadruple-aught buckshot round that's been swaged into a bullet if you wanted to do an extended version of craft making in your game for crafting ammo. That's literally what you do. You take apart quadruple-aught buckshot, probably 4-gauge, and turn them into individual bullets to fire out of a pistol. All of this stuff is for muzzle loaders and/or reloading cartridges and shells, and they're universal. The powder could be smokeless or could be black powder. If you use smokeless powder, you use 1/6 or 1/5 the amount, depending on what you're firing. Or if you want to just make it all safe, you'd use shotgun propellant. Doesn't matter which type; they're all going to be kind of workable. And the way it's written out is 50 pistol cartridges of 32 caliber short. Of all the likely real-world 32 caliber cartridges, I sorted them this way, and you end up with a pretty good arrangement. And the thing is, all of them have almost the same characteristics. They're just really 2-to-1 ratio on the cartridges. And remember the original image, they had short and long? Yeah, it was double the length. It could hold a heavier bullet and more propellant. And now we go down to the next page. So this is the data that we get by conglomerating all of these together. All of the, 327 Magnum all the way down. Also, I should point out that the cartridge type we're really dealing with, well, it's called short. It's called 320 pistol. That's what it's called. But it's a 320 short retroactively, again, because someone copyrighted or whatever. The rim is 375. The base is 337. And so is the neck. And the bullet is 312. Now that's all of them kind of combined together. Now that indicates your drill bit you would use if you were using a pipe pistol. There's the neck diameter depending on, it could be this small. But the idea here is that you're dealing with something that the neck of the cartridge is bigger than the bullet, and the bullet has to go through a hole in the metal tube that's smaller than the bullet because it has rifling, or it doesn't. In a pipe gun, that's a big deal. Now, what pipe would be used to make a handmade gun in the world of Fallout or in the video game Rust? The pipe available isn't. There are certain diameters, internal diameters of pipe and tubing that are just not available because they just don't make them. They've never been made. You can't find any evidence of it. But you'd end up with basically a 32 caliber or a 31 caliber hunk of tubing. The 31 caliber being the best because then you could put in very light rifling. If you did this one, the bullet would just flop down the barrel and you'd lose speed and pressure. It'd be garbage. So you're really stuck with number 21 gauge 3/8 inch tubing, otherwise known as .375, which, by the way, is the rim. Yeah, literally 3/8 tubing, not pipe, would literally make it to where when you put the cartridge in, the rim of the cartridge, if it was rimfire or if it was centerfire, would be the outer diameter of the tubing. It would be nearly perfect for making it a conversion for any barrel you drilled out to 375, like let's say the 38 caliber, which is the next version up, which the game uses a model. Yeah, they basically took 3/8 tubing and drilled, stuck it in there with glue or whatever and put it in and maybe shimmed it to where it'd be off center so they could fire the rimfire. Anyway, the best matches for them absolutely are the 32 short rimfire, which is 377 for the rim, and or 320 short centerfire, otherwise known as bulldog, revolver, or 32 or 320, excuse me, pistol ammo. It's literally named 320 pistol or 32 pistol ammo, just like they do in the game. And the rim diameter is 35. So, yeah, it would be that data you see on the screen. All of them used a 80 grain bullet or projectile, or literally a quadruple buckshot pellet mushed into the shape of a bullet, swaged. Went under 1,000 feet per second and had about 126 foot-pounds of energy. When they went over to centerfire, for some reason, it went to a lot lower feet per second, a lot lower power. These are just barely capable of being considered a self-defense cartridge. They're very nearly the 50 foot-pound range that's considered commonly not good enough. No, really, seriously, it lost over half the energy by them putting them into a centerfire. Well, it's because, well, actually, I can't come up with a reason. That's dumb. Anyway, let's move on. See also the 380, 82 grain, blah, 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 triple-aught buck pellet. It starts out at 38 caliber, and then you mash it down to the diameter of the bullet at 32. It makes it a bullet shape. You mash it in, and that's how they did it. They would take triple-aught or quadruple-aught buck pellets and swage them in a mold and make them to 80-some-odd grain, 81 grain, for instance, or 82, and use that. And you can also see the 38 Wasteland cartridges by Frontline Rejects YouTube channel. They talk about this kind of thing as an alternative because they decided to go straight to the 38 caliber Smith & Wesson Model 2. So anyway, that's your video for today about some useless subject you may not have known about, that this is actually based on something in the real world, and likely it was inspired by or directly ripped off and color changed from the Wikipedia article. And yeah, this would qualify as a handgun that would fire rim or centerfire, because guess what? Some of the guns actually contained a little off-center wheel that you'd rotate with a little wrench so you could fire the older rimfire and the newer centerfire out of the same gun. And yeah, when they improved it, they weakened it. And yeah, the information you see in the video game is based on the ballistics of the new and improved centerfire that sucked. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. This is all your gaming trivia for the day, I hope.